Well, hey folks, Luigi Mangione is facing serious federal charges, including interstate stalking and murder using a firearm. But his defense team has taken an unusual step, launching a website to shape public opinion. Well, hey everybody, welcome to this special episode. Luigi Mangione is facing serious federal charges, including interstate stalking and murder using a firearm. But his defense team has taken an unusual step, launching a website intended to shape public opinion. Is this an ethical way to raise funds and control the narrative? Or is it an attempt to manipulate the jury pool? Well, join me as we break this thing down. The evidence, the controversial impact of online advocacy, and the whole kit and caboodle. Hey, welcome to Profiling Evil, your go-to crime channel where we dive deeply into the criminal investigative process in hopes of providing some education on the fascinating world of crime solving. Now, if you're passionate about unraveling mysteries, you've come to the right place. And before we jump into today's case, I hope you'll take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button at the bottom of the screen here. Make sure that you're giving us a thumbs up, that you're liking us, and that you're sending us out to all your friends and neighbors so that they might consider joining Profiling Evil. And by the way, folks, giving us a thumbs up helps us bring content that's valuable. So really, if you've shared Profiling Evil with your friends, thanks so much. Now let's get started on this thing. When high-profile crime cases hit the news, public curiosity skyrockets, and we've seen this in the healthcare CEO murder of Brian Thompson in New York City by allegedly Luigi Mangione. Now, people want to know the whodunits in these cases. They want to know why did they do it and what's going to happen next. In cases like that of Luigi Mangione, a murder suspect who's facing serious federal charges, the internet has become a battleground of narratives. The prosecution is painting this guy as a dangerous criminal, while the defense is scrambling to counteract that perception. So enter into the scene the website, LuigiMangioneInfo.com, a website reportedly set up by Mangione's legal team. Now, I've heard it said Mangione, and I've been told by Italians that it's Mangione, so I'll let you guys argue this one out. This thing isn't about keeping family friends updated, though. This website is a calculated move aimed at shaping public perception. I think also in gathering financial support and possibly influencing the way that people, jurors included, view Mangione before the trial even begins. But is this thing ethical? I mean, could it impact his ability to get a fair trial? And what does it say about the power of public opinion in modern criminal cases? I mean, look what happened in the Karen Reed case the first time around, and we'll see what happens as she comes up for trial in the coming weeks. So the question becomes, why would the defense set up a website for Mangione? The simplest answer, in my opinion, is control. It's all about control. And in a case like this, where the prosecution's narrative is already being pushed through official court documents and media coverage, the defense has a fight, and they have this need to give their own version of events in order to be heard. A website like this allows them to craft their own narrative, potentially humanizing Mangione and suggesting alternative theories. So in a way, casting doubt on the prosecution's case. But let's not forget about the money issue. To me, I think this is a big piece of this. Legal defenses in major cases doesn't come cheaply. investigators, expert witnesses, and top-tier attorneys cost a bucket load of money. And if Mangione's family or the legal team actually believes in his innocence, it makes sense that they would seek financial help from you, the public. You know, there's a precedent for this. Many defendants, even the infamous ones, have raised funds through things like GoFundMe or similar kinds of platforms like we're seeing on this website. Now, I'd like to know how you feel about this process. It's certainly helped, again, people like Karen Reed, and now it's apparently helping Luigi Mangione. And then there's the psychological factor involved in this thing. You see, by maintaining a public presence, the defense can instill doubt, muddying the waters just enough to make a potential juror question whether the prosecution's case is airtight. So if you're asking the question of whether this is an attempt to sway public opinion, I want to be really clear. In my opinion, let's be real about it. Of course it is. The defense isn't creating a website out of goodwill or a sense or obligation to keep you and me and the public informed. This is a calculated move, and it plays on the same psychological tactics that marketing teams and PR firms use to move business. Now, most people won't read through every court document or sift through the hours of testimony that are coming. They're going to skim headlines. They're going to pick up bits of information from social media, and they're going to form opinions based on what they see or what they have repeated the most. If the defense can push this version of their story into the ecosystem even a little bit, they've done their job. Now, the question is, how does it actually work? And jury consultants will tell you that by the time a trial starts, many jurors have already been exposed to the news stories about the case. We saw this in Delphi. We've seen it in Karen Reed. We're going to see it in this case. Now, while judges instruct the jurors to set aside what they've heard about and focus only on the evidence that they see, human nature makes that incredibly difficult. If somebody has already read a sympathetic account of a defendant's background, or they've seen a well-produced video questioning the prosecution's evidence, it may subconsciously influence how they interpret the trial. Which leaves me asking, is this thing ethical? I mean, this is where things get murky. On one hand, everybody deserves a defense, and the legal system is already skewed toward those with money and resources. So if a defendant's family or their legal team believes they're innocent, why shouldn't they fight and get back everything they can using every tool at their disposal? But then there's also the question of fairness. You see, the justice system is supposed to work within a controlled environment where evidence is presented in court and judged by a jury based on what's legally admissible. When cases spill into the court of public opinion, they can take on a life of their own, making it harder to separate facts from emotions. You know, and there's also this risk of misleading the public when you do something like this. Defense websites rarely present a balanced view. They cherry-pick details that support their argument, and they omit anything that contradicts it. If the prosecution were set up a counter website, it would likely do the exact same thing, and the result would be a war of competing narratives where the truth gets lost in all the noise. So to understand why this website matters so much, we have to look at what Mangione is actually accused of. The case against this guy is intense. The prosecution and police allege that he traveled from Georgia to New York City with one goal in mind. That goal, to stalk and murder Brian Thompson, the CEO of a major health industry. Now, security footage shows a masked man that's believed to be Mangione lurking near Thompson's hotel on the early morning hours of December 4th, 2024. When Thompson appears on the scene, the assailant walks up behind him and shoots him multiple times before fleeing the scene. Now here's where things get really interesting, because the murder weapon, a 9mm pistol that was fitted with a silencer or a suppressor, was later found in Mangione's possession when he was arrested over in Pennsylvania in that McDonald's. Now, investigators claim they have a mountain of evidence linking him to the crime, including surveillance footage, a fake ID that he allegedly used to check into that hostel, and a disturbing notebook that's filled with anti-corporate rants and raids about the plans he had for the attack. But one of the most chilling details is the fact that there also were recovered spent shell casings at the scene of the crime that had words like deny or delay etched into them, words that, according to investigators, tie back to Thompson's business practices. Now, Mangione faces multiple felony counts, including interstate stalking resulting in the death of Brian, murder using a firearm, and additional weapons charges. And if convicted, Mangione could spend the rest of his life in prison. And we got to keep in mind that he actually may face the death penalty in this case. So regardless of what that website says, the core fact of the case isn't going to change. If the prosecution's evidence holds up, a slick defense website isn't going to erase surveillance footage. A slick website isn't going to erase or explain a gun that was found in Mangione's possession. But what it might do, however, is introduce enough doubt to make a jury hesitate. And that's all that the defense wants. Maybe Mangione's team will claim that the prosecution's timeline has holes in it. Maybe they'll argue that he was set up. Or maybe they'll just say that while he was in New York, he wasn't the shooter. Now, a good defense attorney doesn't have to prove innocence. All they've got to do is make the jury question whether the person's guilty or not. So let's recap what's happening here with this new website. Now, these are all my opinions, but there's several motivations for the creation of this website, in my opinion. And number one is public perception management. You see, by framing the narrative in a way that's favorable to Mangione, the defense team can counteract negative media portrayals, and they can present evidence or at least arguments that might not be admissible in court, but they can admit it on the World Wide Web. Number two, this may be a complete ploy for nothing more than fundraising to cover the legal defense. Now, high-profile criminal trials like this can be incredibly expensive. A website like this allows the defendant's supporters to contribute toward legal fees, expert witness costs, and investigative resources. A third reason for this may be an appeal to public sympathy. Some defendant families and legal teams use these websites to humanize the accused, sharing personal stories or emphasizing perceived injustices in the case. Now, number four is advocacy for due process. The defense might try to argue that the website is ensuring fairness by highlighting any alleged procedural issues or constitutional violations. Now, I'd really like to know your thoughts on whether or not you think this thing is ethical. While defense websites can clearly serve legitimate purposes, they also raise serious ethical concerns, in my opinion. Number one, I think the biggest thing is potential jury pool contamination. Jurors exposed to biased information outside of the courtroom may form opinions before hearing the evidence in court. Courts often caution jurors against independent research, but widespread online discourse can really influence public perception. Another area of concern is selective disclosure. Unlike evidence that's presented in court, which has to adhere to rules of admissibility, defense websites like this can selectively present information that supports their case while omitting unfavorable kinds of details. And again, just don't liken this just to Luigi Mangione. Think about Karen Reed and what's been going on in that case. Now, number 3, the solicitation of funds from the public. When you have fundraising, you can blur ethical lines if the contributors believe their donations will result in preferential legal treatment, or if the funds are used in ways that are not directly related to the legal defense of this guy. The 4th, I think, is legal and bar association restrictions in the area. I mean, defense attorneys, like prosecutors, have to comply with ethical guidelines that prohibit misleading the public or engaging in conduct that would prejudice a fair trial. And I am not in any way suggesting that this website is doing anything like that. It shows very clearly the case information. You can go in and get the affidavits. You can look at what's happening in the court. But these are always a concern. And finally, at the end of the day, will the website make a difference, or will it just cost a lot of people their hard-earned money in the form of donations? In summary, let's talk about what this guy's really charged with. Number 1, stalking, that alleged traveling from Georgia to New York between November 24th and December 4th with the intent to stalk and kill Brian Thompson. Now, according to the complaint that can be found on this new website, Mangione engaged in behavior that placed Thompson in reasonable fear for his life and ultimately resulted in Thompson's death. Now, they also say that Mangione utilized cell phones and social media and interstate highways in planning and executing the crime. Clearly, the crime of murder through the use of a firearm. Mangione is accused with using this 9mm during the commission of the murder. The complaint states that he approached Thompson outside that hotel in Midtown and shot him multiple times using that firearm equipped with a suppressor. Now, and keep in mind that they've also added on that he's charged with unlawfully possessing and discharging a firearm that's equipped with a silencer or a suppressor. And the complaint highlights that the firearm, again, was used to murder someone. Now, as for the charges against Mangione, the evidence appears substantial, with digital evidence, forensic evidence, surveillance information, all supporting the prosecution's case. And this case will likely center on Mangione's intent, his mental state, and possible legal defenses in determining the final outcome. But I want to just touch on the evidence, because if the website's troubling anybody, for those of you that think law enforcement's done the right thing in bringing charges against him, I think the evidence, if it's true and if it's found to be true, is overwhelming. Number 1, the surveillance footage. Multiple security cameras captured Mangione's movements before, during, and after the murder, showing his use of the electric bicycle, a gray backpack, the counter-surveillance techniques that he put in. Another huge thing is that firearm that was recovered. When he was arrested in that fast food restaurant, police recovered a 9mm pistol with a silencer or a suppressor on the weapon. It matched the weapon used in the murder, and it later was proven to match ballistically. And then there's that notebook with plans written in it. Investigators recovered the notebook detailing these grievances that Mangione had against healthcare industries and his intent to target an industry executive at this investor conference. I mean, that's really big news. You can't get past the shell casings with writing on them. Those 9mm casings with deny, delay, and depose inscribed on them are huge pieces of physical evidence. And then the attempts at false identification. Mangione used a fake New Jersey driver's license to check into a hostel and used it to attempt to conceal his identity. But then think about this, the captured communications, the suspect's cell phone records, and online activity indicated that he monitored the victim's movements in the days leading up to the attack. So, true crime enthusiasts, you've already seen this play out before. Whether it's O.J. Simpson's "if it doesn't fit, you must acquit," to the ongoing debates around guys like Adnan Syed's conviction, public perception is going to continue to play a huge role in criminal cases. And Luigi Mangione's defense team is playing the long game in this case. By setting up this website, they're planting seeds of doubt, shaping narratives, and perhaps most importantly, ensuring that his story gets heard beyond the cold, hard language of the federal indictment. Yeah, that's true. I mean, with the creation of LuigiMangioneInfo.com, it presents complex legal and ethical issues. The defense clearly has the right to advocate for their client, publicly presenting selective information, even raising funds. But the question is, could it improperly influence public opinion and potentially affect a future jury pool? Given the severity of the charges and the extensive evidence in this case, the trial of Luigi Mangione is expected to draw significant legal and public scrutiny. I suspect I'm going to be on court TV a lot in this case, and it's going to further fuel debates on the ethics of online advocacy in criminal defense cases. So whether or not this is an ethical question depends on your perspective. It's a clever legal strategy, to say the least, but it possibly is an attempt to manipulate public opinion. Either way, it's a stark reminder that in the digital age, a case isn't just fought in the courtroom anymore. It's also fought in the courtroom of public opinion. And I hope you'll take time to enter your comments down below and weigh in on the comments made by others. I want to thank you for tuning in to Profiling Evil. I really appreciate your support, and I love having you along for this journey. So don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter for more updates, more insights. And by the way, if you like audio podcasts, we've got you covered. Subscribe to Profiling Evil on your favorite podcast platform so that you can catch all of our episodes on the go. And if you're looking for more content, head over to profilingevil.com, our website, where you can also sign up for our digital newsletter, The BOLO, which stands for Be on the Lookout. The only way you're going to get the BOLO is by signing up at profilingevil.com. And make sure you're checking out our other sources on that website. I think you'll enjoy it. And again, folks, if you like anything to do with true crime books, please pick up my books, She Knew No Fear or Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult. And keep watching, because there might be something new coming out real soon. Hey, thanks for your incredible support of Profiling Evil. We'll see you soon at the next crime scene.